Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to Take 2 of the live show. We'll see how this goes on the next one if the stream stays stable. It looks like it's okay. Please let us know if you can't hear us or see us, but so far, so good. We had an interesting start to the show. We might just kind of pretend we didn't have that start and go back to what we said before so everybody can hear us and everyone has it smooth. So, Jared, thank you for joining us. We just had the Nuggets and the Spurs in San Antonio. So, what were your initial thoughts about the game on the Nuggets side?
Wow, thrilling to be here. Oh my God. So
Whoa.
Take 2 here. What I was talking about before our stream died was just about how, we were talking about this off the air. Jokic had 30 shots tonight. I can't believe it. I feel like every time I watch him play, he only takes like 11 shots, but has what should be really like 30 assists or hockey assists. So tonight, him being the aggressor, him taking the ball up the floor a lot more, him trying to get to the block and really attack post mismatches. I mean, we saw him literally just moonwalk through DeMar DeRozan in the third quarter, which I thought was a really fascinating one. That was pretty fun. I actually laughed out loud when I saw that. But so, this was amazing to get to like really see the peak capability of Jokic. But then also just obviously the Spurs were terrific. Denver's bench was 5 for 24 from the field. So that obviously is going to be an issue because the Spurs, that 8-man rotation was pretty much like perfect in their kind of succinctness tonight, even if Patty Mills had a rough shooting night.
Right. I mean, the Spurs were, on the flip side, just really impressive all around, the way they moved the ball. They defended well as well. And they had that little run that kind of broke their backs in the fourth quarter around 7 minutes. And I tweeted it out. There's a play where the ball was like, they get an offensive rebound, like a kick out, and they didn't have hardly any time to shoot it. And Bryn Forbes just launches 26-footer, and just ball goes right in, gives them a 12, 14-point lead. And that was pretty much it. So it's really impressive when the Spurs are at their best, when you have DeMar DeRozan not only scoring well in the second half like he did, but he's facilitating in the first half. And then you got LaMarcus Aldridge doing his all-star dance. You kind of start to wonder, can they get farther than everybody thinks? Can they get to like the Western Conference Finals? What's your take on that?
I mean, their matchup's going to be Portland if they win the series. So hell yeah, of course they can. I feel like Portland's a team that they match up very nicely against, especially because they're such a good game planning team, and Portland is relatively easier to game plan for, I guess, considering that they have two great scorers that does most of the heavy lifting for them on offense. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves in talking about that, considering it's a game 7. But I love the way that San Antonio plays high-low. And there's just so much stuff that feels like mid 2000s or late 2000s about the way they play, especially when they have two bigs out there. They do such a good job of like, there's this one thing that they'll do where they'll do a zipper cut where like the bigs almost like replace each other from the high-low positioning. And then they'll run a pick and roll, and the defense will be so focused on the big that it cut down to the dunker spot that they forget about the other big who's at the screen, who's kind of doing a delayed roll. And the Spurs have so many guys that are just comfortable and kind of like slowly working their way into the paint. And so they get a lot of easy finishes from that off of that. Both of these teams, they get a lot of like kind of like weird, easy mid paint finishes. Neither of these teams are teams that really like attack the rim hard. They kind of attack the rim soft, I guess would be the way to say it without sounding weird, or I guess with sounding weird.
Anyway, but okay, I hear you. And then speaking of the bigs of the Spurs, like Jakob Poeltl needs a game ball. Jakob Poeltl.
Clearly did not watch Game of Zones today, because that was a whole part of the.
Oh, was it really? No, I guess I should watch it. I don't, but I'm a little bit busy during the day.
It's 4 minutes. It's the 4 minutes of best TV you're going to see all week.
Listen, I should film me doing these things, because it's like down to the wire, desperately trying to get these videos out as soon as possible, knowing that like every minute that goes by is going to be less people being able to watch it. But Jakob Poeltl, hey, listen, this will be happy I said the last name right, but he had 8 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and he only played 28 minutes. It's not a very pedestrian stat line, but he had the highest plus minus in the team, or actually, sorry, second highest plus minus behind Bellinelli. and he was just making plays, and like the kind of plays that don't show up in the box score. But he had a couple of finishes down low that were beautiful on nice passes. But like the finish itself, the pass would have been forgotten, you know, if he didn't finish. So, and he's also doing really well on the defensive end too. I know that Jokic had a ton of points, but he was executing the game plan really well. Part of the game plan clearly is they're going to give Jokic 5 or 6 feet on the perimeter and just let him shoot it. And he hit some threes. He hit a couple mid-range. And that's probably the sprinkling on top that really gave him, the gaudy numbers here for scoring to get to 43. Otherwise, he would have had like 30. But still, just really stuck to the game plan really well. Another guy in that long line of lists of big men the Spurs have had in the past, like, oh my goodness, who's the oh my God, from Argentina, Splitter.
Yeah.
Right, but better than Splitter. He's got better hands. He's got better hands, and I think he might finish better than him. So, anyhow, I want to make sure he gets his due. But and then even like LaMarcus Aldridge, it's like he is like a consummate pro, all-star. You know what's coming. That over the right shoulder turnaround, high release, and it doesn't matter. It's like it's just kind of amazing to me that he can continue to do that over and over again, and no one can stop it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Pirtle's concerned, I think a big part of it was just him. He worked out of the dunker spot really well, so that when Jokic would rotate over, he would kind of, what I like about what he would do is rather than kind of catch it high and just turn and finger roll it in. So they're really smart about when they're doing that kind of high-low stuff, that they're at least like staying active there. And obviously that's what makes San Antonio so great. Is San Antonio, they'll have what could look like a stagnant offense or not a well-spread offense, but they're really smart about just moving a little bit into those right positions so that they're actually, so that they're just in the right spot, even if it's like a 5% difference. That's a difference that allows them to really execute without having superior length or athleticism. And he had one great play that kind of like helped the Spurs really break it open, because they went on that huge run in the early fourth quarter when Plumlee was out there for Jokic, which, I mean, I think that begs the question, is Jokic going to have to play like 45 minutes in game 7? Which I don't know if his body can take it, but we'll see. But he kind of like hustled for like a longer rebound, did like a dribble to keep the ball alive through traffic, and then threw it to Bryn Forbes at the top of the key, who buried a 3. And I think they called the timeout for that, and that really broke it open. So he just made all those little hustle plays, and that was great to see. And then as far as Aldridge, yeah, it's like that shot is going to define the game a lot of the time, where there's going to be 3 possessions in a row where they're just going to put him on the block if they think he has the right matchup. And it's really just a matter of, can that defender prevent him from getting down to the block so he can take that fade away from 11 feet out, as opposed from like 16 feet out, where it's a little bit tougher. And he got his way tonight. For sure.
Well, let's go to some questions. We have one good one in the comment section of for right now. But once we answer this one, I'm sure everyone's going to ask some questions. So Westbrook's MCL, very good handle, asks, seems like Portland's big rotation is underrated defensively. Can they match up with the Spurs' bigs? So, well, that's interesting because, let's see, Portland's big rotation is, Cantor. And now I want to say something about Cantor. He actually has been fine on defense, like, making some plays, not being exposed completely against the Thunder. So that was a real eye-opener for me on that one. Yeah.
You were giving me shit in the last podcast for saying that. You're like, oh, I disagree with you on that.
Oh, well, I think, wait, what? Are you sure that's what I said?
Yeah, we kind of like went back and forth, and you're like, all right, I guess we'll agree to disagree with the condescending Coach Nick. I can't believe you're defending Enes Kanter's defense, but it's not good, but it's way more passable than we thought. And he's still, and we see it with Jokic too. He still kind of stands like knees not flexed. That's what bothers me the most. Is if you're a big man, your feet should be wider than your shoulders, and your knees should be flexed if you're defending a pick and roll. Like, if you're just standing there just straight up, you're just automatically out of the play at that point, because you're not going to be able to react fast enough.
Right. Fair enough. So Kanter, might be okay against Jokic, because Jokic certainly isn't going to like blow by him. I don't think so. That's okay. Let me wrap my head around who else is on Portland's with the bigs. Who are they bigs right for Portland right now? I'm completely blanking. Harkless. So Harkless matching up with
that's going to be a really tough one for him, because if he's at the 4, that means he's getting LaMarcus. He obviously is way too thin to guard LaMarcus.
Right.
He
That's a
would match
problem.
up really well against Rudy Gay, but that I assume Al-Farouq Aminu is going to be on him for the most part. So it's Zach Collins, who I think him and Pirtle are kind of similar. He's more of like a quick athletic guy. Pirtle's a little bit more powerful.
Yeah. I will predict,
Yeah.
though, looking at the way this is lining up, that Aldridge should have a career series, and we've seen him go off on other series before. But he might light it up against Portland. I just don't know if they have anybody down there that can really handle him at all size wise, because you can't. Aminu is too short. Harkless is probably too short too. Canner is not going to be able to do much against him, I don't think. So you know what I mean. You know, Myers Leonard, like Portland's going to have to struggle. Either they let him eat and get a lot of points and shut everybody else down, or Portland's going to end up hurting them big time.
And Portland's been trying to avoid playing Myers Leonard and has been mostly playing Collins. Although, on the other hand, the matchup against Oklahoma, it's like their only bigs are Adams and Noel. They go with small ball 4s most of the time. So I guess against San Antonio, Portland would want to go deeper into their bag with their bigs. And then Jake Layman, not big enough, but just another guy that I think defensively is usually really good as a stretch 4. But he isn't a good matchup for this series.
Right. Yeah. We'll have to see, and especially with rotations getting probably even tighter, I would imagine.
What about Denver, though? Because obviously it's like we're going to Game 7. So how does it change with Millsap? I feel like Harkless could get away with covering Millsap. Millsap is a lot more powerful, but he at least is a face-up guy from the elbow as opposed to Aldridge. So should work better for him.
That could be an interesting thing. And by the way, Harkless has really proven a little bit to me that he deserves to play and deserves to be out there. I'm not so sure I was sold on his game, for a playoff team until what I saw in OKC. So I would say he could handle that okay. And Al-Farouq Aminu defensively certainly can handle guys who are a little bit bigger than him too. So that would be interesting on it from a Denver standpoint with Millsap, and then they kind of go small after that in a way that seems like that's much more doable. I mean, so I suppose the answer is if the Spurs had if the Blazers had any choice of who they want to play, I think that they want to play Denver, right?
I don't know. I mean, we're concerned about the big matchup, but like as good as Aldridge is, I think Jokic is that much better. So I feel like I would rather have San Antonio, because even if I might struggle with the matchup against them, I still feel like my guards can just outscore them too. So it should be a pretty good tit for tat. Not to mention, Portland does know LaMarcus very well, and LaMarcus hasn't changed that much since he was in Portland. I feel like San Antonio's adjusted to allow him to play his game for the most part.
And that game is, it's still, and it's a throwback, the turnaround, with right shoulder jump shots and the fadeaways, a little shot fake dribble. Now he does go to the 3-point line a little bit, but it really is, this is one of those Cro-Magnon man things where we're seeing a bridge between two eras, and there's not too many guys left. Although, I would argue that even Montrezl Harrell is now sort of one of those kind of guys in a different way, but bridging some weird gap that I thought was going to die with Kenneth Faried. I thought that he was going to be the last guy like that, and yet here we go. And I feel like there's somebody else who's a lot like Harrell, and I'm blanking. Oh, you know what? You know who it could be is Zion. But to a whole other level, but in the same kind of high energy, athletic, but around the rim, that doesn't really space much. But he can take that role to a whole other level in the modern NBA. That would be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically like Trez if Trez was a great playmaker, and a better ball handler probably too. So, and maybe a better finisher. I mean, I tweeted about this last night. Like, I've never seen a guy who is as sure a thing to dunk on a pick and roll as Montrezl Harrell is. Where if he gets the ball and just has 2 feet while in the paint while facing the hoop, he just goes up with 2 arms straight up and he dunks every time. No matter, because he looks really short. He looks like he's 6'6", even though I think he's listed at 6'8". But it looks like it should be way harder for him to dunk than it is. But he just does it every time, and it's like a 2-arm power slam straight through the middle. No matter who's in front of him, he just ends up barreling through them. and there's nothing really like it in the league right now. It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and he's really just tough and no nonsense. Nothing really bothers him.
Yeah.
He's not going to get in. He's not going to mix it up. And I don't know if he talks that much trash. Doesn't look like he does. So it was funny because I was trying to get an interview with him on Sunday, and he was too busy. But I did tell him, the question I'm going to ask is, why do you think you're on my favorite players list? I.e., why do coaches love you so much? And there's a lot of coaches that do. And he laughed, and I think he certainly. It's just like the way he goes about his business. It's just tough, and it's aggressive, and it's strong. And when you have players like that, that's the kind of guy you want, especially in the playoffs when you're going to war. He's the guy you want behind at your back. So really, he's been instrumental. I kind of dipped my toe in the water about asking. It would be crazy to tell Doc to start him instead of JaMychal Green, and people kind of freaked out on me because JaMychal Green's been doing pretty well, and his numbers are really good.
In Game 6.
Yeah.
Game 5.
So.
5, 6.
Game 6. No,
no,
where are
Game
we?
5. It was
Game 5.
Yeah.
I mean, what made him great? I mean, I thought he was good, but what made him great?
Okay, well, Lou Williams was great. He was really good for his role. So
okay, yeah, I think he hit a couple of threes. He spaced the floor well for that. He played some defense. He fouled out, but he was trying to deny Kevin Durant, and that's interesting what they're doing there on defense. They're not doing the out and out complete sag off of Draymond, but they're doing the ignore Draymond enough and putting Patrick Beverley on him. So that was the breakdown today that actually did really well today. Was showing what Draymond is doing, and what's interesting is that the Hamptons 5 lineup is a negative 7.7 for the series, which is unheard of for that lineup probably in the how long is it, 3 years now? In the 3 years Kevin Durant's been there, there's never. And then in Game 5 alone, it was negative 30 something. It was terrible. So this has got to be a big wake up call and a shock to Coach Kerr because what it is you have Draymond Green and you have Iguodala together, and what their goal is to get them to shoot the ball as much as they possibly can, and they're taking the bait.
Yeah, I guess the sample size now is just big enough for me to care about that net rating for a lineup. Usually it's like a single game net rating for a lineup. It's enough of an anomaly potential in there that it's so noisy you would not make too much of it. But through Game 5, it's been apparent Doc has been trying to figure out the best way to sit off of Draymond, and doing it with Beverly is just brilliant because he matches up well across the board for size. And then Beverly is that roaming guy, and Beverly can be an effective roamer on defense at any part of the floor, and it allows him to kind of keep his head up and coordinate. And you see Beverly is yelling out stuff the entire possession. I think that's been a big part of why the Clippers defense has been so effective in the half court. It's just because their defensive communication is as good as it possibly could be at this point. But you were talking about Draymond. We have a question here about whether Draymond looks worse on defense.
And let's let everyone know who asked that question. Can you read that?
I can't. It's too far from me right now.
Oh, right. For me, it's Abu Baker Khatib. So he asked that. Does Draymond look worse on defense? What's your answer?
No.
Right. He looks good. He looks solid. Right.
He looks good. He definitely looks frustrated. And he looks a little over aggressive in that he's upset that they're playing off of him like this. Mm-hmm. Although I feel like he's got to be kind of used to it at this point because he's been getting it throughout the year. This isn't completely brand new. But he definitely has been really frustrated and heated in this series, and it does sometimes come out in his defense. And I mean, I couldn't believe he didn't get ejected from that game last night. It seemed the way he was going at the officials, I figured he was definitely going to. And you're seeing that come out in his defense a little bit. But as far as his reaction timing, as far as his recognition and stuff like that, still seems pretty great to me. I must be missing something that this person's seeing.
Well, the thing is there were a lot of stretches where the Clippers were just lighting them up. They had 60-plus points in the first half of last night's game, what's weird was because during some points in the second half, the Warriors' defense was overwhelming, like we've seen in a lot of spurts during the series. But that's a testament to the Clippers, who just keep going, they keep under control, and they get back on track, and then hit a couple shots, and they're right back in it. And then you have Lou Williams, who can simply just score at will. I mean, he was getting layups. layups. And they were forcing switches to get Kevin Durant to guard Lou Williams, which I was like, that's kind of weird to me. Why would they want a guy who was quick and long and much, bigger than him, who should be able to keep him in front and really bother him? But it didn't matter. He was taking Kevin Durant. They did it to Draymond Green, where they forced Green on him, and they wanted it. Like that's what they looked like they wanted. So, because remember, you can choose who screens for Lou Williams, and they were choosing Draymond Green and Kevin Durant. So, Doc is some weird, evil, mad genius who's like figured that out. Plus, they throw Patrick Beverley on Draymond, which actually made Montrezl Harrell have to guard Klay Thompson in that Hamptons 5. And that was fascinating to me, too. Klay got a 3 in the right corner down the stretch because they ran him off a screen and they tried switching, and Lou gambled on a pass when he should have just played the position. But it's all wacky. And I don't blame like Steve Kerr for looking at this thing thinking like, I don't know what we're doing here. We haven't ever seen this before. Their small ball 5 is playing my 2 guard. Their 2 guards guarding my power forward. No, my center. Sorry. So it's a wacky game, and it's getting all kind of screwy. And I guess you have to argue that Doc Rivers is winning the coaching battle now. And I just don't know. Coach Kerr like threw out a lineup there that had McKinney, Bogut, Livingston, Iguodala, and Klay. And it was a terrible lineup. Again, I know it's small sample size for that, but like it just doesn't work, and it wouldn't work conceptually. And he gave him 5 or 6 minutes to start the second quarter, and that was a kind of a big moment.
It's funny. I felt like, if I remember correctly, didn't Montrez have a great defensive possession on Klay in the fourth quarter? I feel like there was one where he really shut him down, and that really stuck out to me.
Okay. Geez, now I can't remember, but because I did go through. It's not coming to my mind, but okay. But either way, it's just a really interesting way. Yeah.
You know what it is? I'm thinking of it's when he picked up Durant from the left elbow and was able to stay in front of Durant into the paint. Then Durant dumped it off to Looney, and he just kept going, and he rejected Looney. That's what I was thinking.
Okay,
of.
Right. Yeah. And there might have been another one too where Iguodala gets he gets beat by Durant from the right wing into the middle, and he kind of recovers. They dump it off to, I think, Iguodala, who was open, and he comes out of nowhere and contests the shot into a miss at point blank range, and they get the rebound. Another one of those big plays. So again, can we say enough good things about Montrezl Harrell? Because this is the guy who's just making plays, and they're lucky to have him. And it's crazy that he couldn't fit in on Houston before this. I mean, imagine Houston having him. They'd kill to have him now.
I don't really understand why all these guys weren't working to perfection in Houston the way they are with. I guess a big part of it with Harrell. It was just all the Houston, the 3 guys that were at the podium last night. But I think a big part of it with Harrell is just that he's got a few years into his career now and has kind of figured it out, and he's just become so confident and aggressive on offense. I mean, it seemed like kind of a relatively limited offensive player up until a year and a half ago. Right, I feel like second half of last season is when he started to get there, but he was mostly he was kind of like a Kenneth Faried type of player up until that point. It felt like. Well,
yeah, but I mean, and he kind of still is. I mean, I think he might have hit. He can hit like the 15-footer face up now, so he can do that a little bit. I'm trying to picture if I could see him driving to the basket from the perimeter. I don't know if he does that too much. So he really doesn't do. I guess post up wise, he can do that really well now. And that might be the things that he didn't quite have confidence in earlier.
He can put the ball on the floor from the elbow, and he seems to have a pretty good ball handling ability. He can do a little crossover. You can feel kind of a poor man's Blake Griffin vibe going from him, where he's handling more like a wing. He doesn't look like a big who's kind of plodding with long arm dribbles. He's got a kind of a tight control and can kind of attack going straight at the hoop. I think it's part of what makes him so good as a rim runner, is just that he can kind of really face at the hoop and attack like he's a wing type player.
For sure. Well, listen, do we want to talk a little bit about the Eastern Conference real quick off the top of your head preview? What's going on there?
Sure. Well, you know what? We have a quick question here from C Toma 24. How good is Jokic? Good. Who's going to have to step up in Game 7 for Denver?
Oh. Where do you see that question? I guess I'm frozen.
It's just coming.
Okay. All right. So how good is Jokic? Jokic is great. Jokic will be a Hall of Famer if he keeps this up for the next 10, 12 years, right?
Probably next 5 years.
Okay. So that's under control. What was the second part of that question?
Who needs to step up in Game 7? So let's take a look at tonight's box score and figure out who had the worst shooting performance, because there's a lot of them from Denver.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I,
I mean,
like,
Jamal
this is
Murray.
Jamal, right?
I
Yeah.
think he's the X factor, and he always is. To me, it was funny because there was a stretch in the very beginning of the game where he didn't look like he was connected to the game. He looked a little bit off, and I tweeted that out. And people are like, but then again, he hit like 3 or 4 shots in a row or whatever, and he looked all of a sudden much better, and then he kind of went back down again. I think that's what Jamal Murray is. He's just always up and down, up and down. The dude's only like, is he 22?
I think he's 23 now.
Is he? Okay. So,
But
but certainly that's the guy. Now, Gary Harris ended up at 5 for 8, and I feel like he got marginalized down the stretch. I don't even remember him like being out there. So he's a guy that should be taking more shots as well. He shot really well. He looked really good, but he's also a guy who can just sort of disappear because he's not going to handle the ball a lot and dominate the usage. So that's on Jamal Murray to try and find that. Jamal Murray shouldn't be taking 19 shots. I think that's another thing.
And also, I remember Jamal Murray's birthday was recently. It was to turn 22. So my bad.
22. Okay.
Only 22.
Yeah, and maybe he celebrated a little bit too much for his birthday, and that's why he was a bit off today.
You know, same thing with people that were criticizing Donovan Mitchell heavily after the Jazz lost. These guys are 22. They're going to be really good.
Right.
To give them time to figure it out. Okay. Same thing with D'Lo. I mean, like all these guys are really young. They're going to figure it out. They'll be great players soon.
Yeah.
And then Harris, the entire season has been fading in and out. It's been really weird. He's taken just like a big step back, it seems, from where he was last year. And he's been relatively healthy, it seems like, most of the year. People I've talked to in Denver, I haven't really gotten kind of like a straight answer of like what is really going on. So that's been a really weird one. But yeah, I mean, if they're gonna make it through the first round, they need him to have a big game. At least he was efficient tonight. But we talked about it before. The bench was 5 for 24. Bench shoots 8 for 24, even a couple more shots there, and they could be winning this game. And it's like, that's obviously a huge part of it. Just they need Monty Morris to, make smart plays, still be aggressive and make smart plays. And I think they should be okay. But they're the favorite. They're clearly the favorite for this game 7. They're at home. They shot 46% from the field tonight, so it wasn't like they shot terribly. It's just that the Spurs shot, I want to say 55%. 57%. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Spurs shot 57% from the field.
Yeah. Now, I think on the Spurs side, Derek White, top of my favorite players list, played really well, very solid, and they're going to need that kind of game from him as well in a game 7 on the road. So, because I think it's pretty clear, it's going to be rough. Like the refs like to hold their whistles and let the players decide, which got to be really frustrating as a coach in that setting. But Aldridge probably is going to get his stuff down low. I would imagine. Oh, you know who the X factor then is DeMar DeRozan, because here's his chance finally to put to bed a lot of the crap that they've heard about all over into Toronto all these years, and he's kind of put all those ghosts to bed. I think the way he's played in this series has been, as well as he needs to play to get them where they are. But this is it. This is his chance to finally make that mark, and I think he actually is going to be the X factor. If he plays well, I feel like the Spurs should win, and if he doesn't, then it's Denver going on.
And just one more X factor on the San Antonio side.
Yeah.
This is the night that Bryn Forbes goes off. I want to see 4 for 6 from the 3-point line. Bryn Forbes. He's going to be the sniper for them. Hit some clutch threes. DeMar DeRozan's going to get doubled. And now that he's a mature DeMar DeRozan, he's going to kick it out to Forbes at the top of the key. He's going to bury that shot.
All right.
So, because you mentioned Derek White, can you quickly give me, let's say, your list of like 5 guys that are like the upstart guys emerging in the playoffs that you like are your players that you love that have been your favorite players? I feel like our list is probably going to be just about exactly the same.
Okay, well, I gotta look at the teams now because I'm blanking. Besides that, everyone always asks me, like, Fred VanVleet's a guy, but he hasn't been playing that great on my list normally. So you go, maybe it'll spur my
so
other
like
things.
White has been just spectacular this year, and especially in the playoffs. Harrell has been a remarkable revelation. Siakam, I mean, like, Siakam's obviously become like a household name, it seems, but like he's really showing in the playoffs so far.
Yeah.
Trying to think of another good answer.
Okay, let's see. On Philly, Toronto. Let's see here. Anybody? I mean, the usuals. Boston. I'm selling on Boston. I'm sorry. I'm not high on them right now. And then Milwaukee. No one's really. Yeah, it's interesting, but those are the good names right there that really grabbed me. Damian Lillard, just what he did.
He's been good.
Completely outplayed Russ, and I think that sort of says that he's better than Russ at this point, and
Yeah.
until next year, I suppose, and then we'll have to figure that out again. But it's a huge advantage when your point guard can shoot from distance. It really is. Now, I'm not going to say you can't get it done if you don't, but I mean, look what we saw. Portland wins that series basically because he stretches the floor as much as he does versus Russ, who does not stretch the floor at all.
For sure. And just another guy that I wanted on the list was Royce O'Neal. I really love what he did in the playoffs. I mean, he's a little overmatched in his role, but for what he is, I think he's been kind of making the most of his opportunities. So I feel like every year Utah adds like a new guy to the rotation. That's someone who you love as an overachiever, and he was that guy for me this year.
Yeah. I'm actually quickly checking because I really like his game too, and I felt like you know what, it's a good building block for him, even though he's 25. So he's a old second year player. But 10.6 points per game. He shot 47% and then 35% from three. So that's a good building block. Even though he's if he was 21, I'd really feel good about that. And the fact that he's 25, whatever. And I'm really having a problem with Utah's team as it is. And they've hit their ceiling, and I feel like if that's the case after enough years, then it's time to kind of like tear the whole thing down. We saw Toronto do that a little bit, at least with DeMar DeRozan, and I think they should do that. And you know what? I would start with Rudy. I honestly would.
I was gonna say it if you weren't.
Really?
I mean,
it's kind of sacrilege, but around Twitter parts. But
well, you know what? I think we need a little bit of breathing space from this playoffs to figure out can players like Rudy Gobert be your second best player on your team in the playoffs? And right now it seems like it's a no, but you know what? You could kind of argue Clint Capella has been the second best player on the Rockets. So, and he's a very, very similar player. And one of the commenters here hates Utah and the Warriors rule. So good to know also. Right. Yeah. So like maybe they need to change their approach. I mean, Quinn's offensive designs are great. I think Quinn kind of maximizes that team. He's an amazing coach. He's probably one of the 5 best coaches in the NBA. So I don't know if there's much more that they can really do. I mean, Rudy can do more. He could become a post scorer. That would certainly help a lot.
Yeah.
He isn't really, I mean, if he has a mouse in the house, he can do something with it, but otherwise doesn't do that much.
And he doesn't have great hands. And like, apparently that's a real trigger point for a lot of Jazz fans. And I guess what they need me to say is that they've gotten better. Okay, they've gotten a little bit better, but I saw a couple plays in the last game where it just hits off his hands. He cannot catch very well. He's awkward. He's really long limbed, and it just is probably by nature of his body, the way it moves. He's just never going to be rhythmic and smooth. But as a result, I think that he's kind of the guy. Oh, and by the way, I'll just light him up. Sorry, Rudy, but like for a rim protector, there were way too many times guys who get to the rim and score over him and around him. And that was really frustrating to me. Either he wouldn't quite get there and really be aggressive. Guys would just kind of clear him out and grab rebounds in front of him. It was just like, you can't do that in the playoffs. And I feel like he sort of, eats his lunch in the regular season, and then the playoffs come and he doesn't up his game. And as a result, I think this is the highest value he's ever going to have. And so if you're going to move him, it's got to be now.
And you also don't really see any ways in which his game is going to get better, except for obviously just like performing better defensively even more. And we have 2 comments here related to this. The first one is the comment just says, "Is Rudy," which I'm assuming is in response to us asking who do they need to get rid of.
Okay.
I'm imagining that in a French accent. Is Rudy. And then the second one is they need to upgrade Favors. It's an assumption that Favors is not going to be back next year. So
okay. Is he a free agent?
Yes, they will try to. God damn it. I have to look this up. What's wrong with me?
No worries. Well, I have a question.
I'm pretty sure.
I have a question from Adam UCDMBB on Twitter. We can ask while we're checking that real quick, which would be, who would you put on KD if you were Doc? Going back to that series, because what he did was he took Beverly off of him to put him on Draymond Green, and that has Michael Green on KD for the most part. it worked in that game. I mean, KD was going off on the other games before, the 2 games before that, 30 plus on each game. So you can't, and the Patrick Beverly experiment kind of is over. Like, he just shot over him and didn't have any problems. So I have to go Michael Green for sure to start out on him. And Montrezl Harrell could probably does it. I got to check who else did pick him up. What about you in your mind's eye? Can you picture that?
Yeah, I mean, Harrell's the guy that I'm thinking right now. I don't think that the Pat Beverly experience should be over. I disagree with that. I think you can. I think you should. You should mix it up throughout the game.
Okay. And you're right. I'm sure he'll match up on him at some point at switch or whatever. So he'll have to do it. And man, he's an agitator. Like he was in Kevin Durant's head, and certainly when they got ejected in game 2 or game 1. Yeah. But you can see that Durant he's thinking about him. It's in his mind.
And Danilo is going to guard him a decent amount too. I think that was probably the second most frequent. It felt like JaMychal Green guarded him for probably about like 40 possessions, and Danilo had him for about 20 possessions. And I don't know if we were talking about this or I was talking to someone else about this. Danilo has gotten huge. That dude looks like he's like 6'10", pretty big, like frame. Like, he's gotten really big. So physically he matches up fairly well, at least size dimensions wise, to KD, but his reaction speed on defense isn't, really good enough to handle KD the way that Green is. So I still think Green is their best matchup. For sure.
Well, any other last comments we want to make on this before we wrap up?
We still got a lot here if you want to keep rolling with it.
My comments are not refreshing, so I can't see them for some reason.
Okay. So, all right.
I'm going to try it on my phone.
Let's see. At Planes with 2 underscores, not just 1, but 2 underscores, wants to know from you. They don't give a crap about me, but they want to know from Coach Nick.
That's right.
Whether the Nuggets will win Game 7. And
okay.
I feel like we kind of waffled on that one. I said yes.
Well, here's the thing about that is, up until a few years ago, the home team, it's like it was guaranteed almost that a Game 7 home team would win. It doesn't feel that way anymore, and that could be anecdotal to me, but I kind of feel like that's what the numbers are saying to us now. So, and especially, it could be with the rise of the 3-point shot, either as the home team can get cold or the visiting team can get hot.
100% correct.
Yeah,
variance has gone up so much. Luck has gone up so much.
Great. So my anecdotal evidence actually is confirmed. I hope if you're basing it on facts. So that's the real question. But okay, so who's going to win that game? I mean, man, I'm trying to get a feeling.
It's a prediction. It doesn't actually mean anything. So you could say whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
Right. Well, it's like I don't even know if I have a feel for it, because this has been a weird series to me. I will say though, here's what I guess. When we see the Spurs play like they play tonight, and then I'm starting to think, well, man, they should be able to get easily to the conference finals. I don't know if I've seen the exact same force from Denver as much. So I guess I have to go with the Spurs. Let's go with them. What do you say?
I think you know what? I think this game will be determined by 3-point shooting. It'll be luck based for the most part. I mean, what you love about Game 7 is that the teams know what their game plan is, and they know what each other's game plan is at that point. And so I think usually defense is so much better in Game 7s, which is what we love about Game 7s. It's like the offenses feel like they're operating in mud, and so they have to really, really. I think it's that the possessions will get whittled down more. You're going to get later into the shot clock. There's going to be a lot more deep shooting. There's going to be probably more ISO play as well too, which probably falls into San Antonio's hands just because they have the 2 best ISO scorers in the series. So I mean, I'm going with Denver just because I think Denver has the most talent, has the best player in the series who can completely control the game, and they're going to be at home, so they have that little bit of an edge there.
Wow. All right. You know what? Then fine. You'll take Denver. I'll take San Antonio, and we'll
Cool.
come back here and decide who was right. And I guess my comments won't even come up on my phone, and will come up in my browser. So it must be something.
I got it. We got plenty more here.
All right. It must be the metal in my head. Well, I want to be in touch with my people. I can't believe I can't see. But Jared, grab a few more. What else do we have? And make sure if you can shout them out. Who says
At
them?
Jay Steinman 95. What can you even get for Rudy Gobert at this point? I see Rudy Gobert, not Rudy Gay. I feel his play style is just in the wrong era. And is that it? And then at climbing with ones instead of eyes. Very nice. I like that. Could Rudy benefit from some Hakeem summer camp?
Oh, geez. I'm a little bit dubious, honestly, about Hakeem and what he knows how to teach because Kobe might be the only guy like that. I guess LeBron worked with him, but LeBron's post game is kind of stagnated too. So I don't know if
I can
that's
tell you,
the key.
I've heard stories about Kobe's lessons, and they're valuable for some people. They're valuable, but they're not going to completely change you unless it's the
Okay.
impact of meeting Kobe and
Oh, but no. Okay, so
internalizing Kobe.
Kobe might work him, but I was thinking that Kobe worked with Hakeem, and he might be the only guy that really like showed like great
Oh, I see what
footwork
you're
and
saying.
post moves.
Sorry. Sure.
If he went with Hakeem,
I think
yeah.
Embiid's post game got a lot better after working with Hakeem. I think his footwork and
Oh,
his
did
sense
Embiid
of
work with him?
yeah, I think so. Right.
All right. Well, don't let Drew hear you say give give Hakeem all that
I think
credit.
I think it might have been before Drew was working with him.
Oh, okay, fair
I
enough.
could be making, but I'm pretty
All
sure
right.
they work together.
All right. Well, listen, wait. I finally got a comment to pop up. Will Derek White be the next top tier point guard in the NBA? Will he level out after this year from MJT 117?
How dare
Hey,
you.
that's how you get a question. How you get me to answer a question and ask about Derek White. He's older too, right? How old is Derek White? Do we know? I'll tell you because we have the technology. This is like, where are you?
You're
Derek
supposed to
White.
start talking about it while you're
Yeah.
looking it up.
He is
think he should be
24. He's still
23.
young. Okay, he's 24. I think that there is another level for him to get to. Now, the level he's at now is like good starter, right? Like good, solid starter.
Yes.
The problem is he's never going to get like the Gaudy numbers in the Spurs system. He's not going to be, I mean, right? I don't see him in the way this team is set up to getting 20-some points a game. But I think he can easily get to like, I bet you he can get to 18 points, 7 assists, be like the Tony Parker, but like bigger, better athlete, better shooter.
And the thing is, so hopefully Murray is going to be back next year.
Yeah,
And
I'm
then
not
you're-
sold on him.
Okay,
Unfortunately.
well, even if you're not sold, he's still going to be this. I assume he's still going to be the starter. I mean, he was
Right.
second team all defense. And by the way, what do you think Tony Parker averaged during? Let's say I'm going to select the prime of his
Scoring
career
or
actually
assists?
here for scoring and assists. I'm going to start in his fourth year when he was 22 and
Yeah.
go up until his age.
I think
32
it's probably in
season.
the range of like 19 and 7.
18 and 6.
Yeah.
You were pretty much like right on with your numbers.
Well,
Exactly 18 and then 6.2.
Well,
assists.
this is not my first rodeo, but the thing about the Spurs offense is that like no point guard in that offense has ever been, had really big numbers from assists. Primarily because they give the ball up early and then they become sort of a cog in the machine and they're like scoring a lot more than that. They're not going to be dominating and doing a lot of pick and roll out top and like Russ does. So I think by nature of those, and like same with Steph. Like Steph will never get more than 7 assists a game.
KD's. I think KD leads the team in assists.
Yeah, he
now.
does, and in a different position in the offense because
And
he's, yeah.
And I think DeRozan led the Spurs in assists this year.
Right.
He had
Although
6.2.
Draymond might have led them in assists too. So Draymond and KD might have both had more assists than Steph.
Yeah.
But Steph has had those years where he's led them, but it's only been 7 or 8 or 7 something. So I think it's a function of the offense. Like the Atlanta now, Trae Young is actually he actually averaged 9 assists a game for like the second half of the year. So there's a good example. Although I could argue that they're not really running the offense that like Budenholzer was running after he left anyway. So it's interesting when you get in certain kind of offenses. There's a limit. So yeah, it's not like Tony Parker had the most amazing stats, but man, he was a top 2 point guard in his prime, top 3, right? In his prime in the mid 2000s.
I hope people can
winning
see
all
my
those titles.
reaction right now. I'm trying to set my neck off.
He's got to be. He had to be top 3, right? You know
Paul
how fast he
Williams,
was.
Darren Williams.
When he was, I mean, we're biased because we remember the last 4 or 5 years of his career, but like,
I guess he was great. He won Finals MVP. Well, I don't like the Finals MVP award too much, but yeah, he was. The thing is, in the regular season, it wasn't until kind of after it was like towards the latter half of his prime that he really became an elite player and was making all NBA teams. So he was. I think if he played for another franchise, he probably would have put up much bigger numbers. I mean, I feel that Manu is one of probably the 10 best players of my lifetime, and I use the excuse of he was on the Spurs. He would have been averaging 25 a game if he played for another team. So I have to give Tony Parker that benefit of the doubt as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Tony was great. He was great.
All right. Well, let's answer two more questions that you can see that I can't see in the comments. What give us one?
Okay. Let's see. This one says, "Why does Coach Nick suck?" No, I'm sorry, I'm
Hey,
misreading
hey,
that.
hey.
Oh, we're
Oh,
getting a coming up in 1 minute thing. That's weird.
what does that mean?
It's showing the B-ball breakdown backdrop instead of our faces right now in the live stream.
It is not mine.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
Well, anyway, we're
maybe mine
battling.
screwed up. Whatever. Okay, this is a good one here from also J Stimson 95. More good questions from this person. What do you think of the Rockets switching everything defense, pros and cons? And let's do that in the context of the Warriors or the Clippers if you really want to.
What do I think about the Rockets defense?
And just switching everything, especially with Capella out there up against the Hampton. Let's focus on the pros and cons of the switching defense with Capella against the Hamptons 5.
Okay. I think he could do okay. He really can move, and we've seen that work well in the past with like mobile centers that can kind of handle a little bit of that. Because who's going to have to deal with, like Steph? You know, I'm not even sure I'm loving the way Steph is playing the last couple of games either against the Clippers, which is a different story because it'll change significantly. But as far as Houston goes, no, I think that's what their system is. It works pretty well. It is able to negate a lot of the advantage. That said, you will see the Warriors get a lot of backdoor cuts. They'll slip those screens and they'll make a lot of those passes and they'll score at the basket easy. But they might trade 2s for 3s. You know, on the other end, and that might work out okay for Houston, and then have Capella be back there just enough to swat a couple shots away and hang on. So it's not a perfect solution against the Warriors' offense because you're going to see layups, you're going to see slip screens, but so it's going to be a tenuous thing, and it is for everybody playing the Warriors, right? Like no one's going to be favored to play the Warriors, but I think it probably gives them their best chance.
I think there's a couple big things for Houston to do. One, mix up switching versus not switching. They gotta. I think you want to you want to be constantly mixing that up so that the Warriors can't really get a feel for where it's going. Because KD most of the time when he's going through a screen, he's trying to get a feel for how's the defense going to play him. When is he going to feel contact? And then knowing is he going to go to his kind of hard stop elbow jumper, or is he going to do the step back at the top of the key, that kind of thing. So the more you mix it up, the less predictable it becomes, and then you can start creating some confusion on their end. And then do you want Harden on the weak side to be dealing with the back door, or do you want to put him in the action where at least you can communicate with him and you're not worried about him falling asleep? I assume they're going to probably target Harden, so you're not going to be able to make that decision if you're Mike D'Antoni, but I'm more nervous about Harden falling asleep on the backside with Clay lurking out there than I am about Harden getting churned through switches and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point too, and they're gonna do their best to try and attack him, and they should be able to get that for sure. Now, on the flip side, what we're not going to see is anybody playing behind Harden like they're doing right now.
I mean, I see top blocking. That was just out of the zone.
Right, top blocking with the ball. So we're not going to see that. And by the way, the argument the Jazz have was that his numbers were down. And that's true. And I remember it saying, the only way I guess I would judge if it works is what the win and loss was. I hate to put it in those terms, but because again, the argument was it was the offense that was so bad for the Jazz. But I don't know. Either way, when you have Iguodala and you have Kevin Durant and you have Klay Thompson and Sean Livingston, they got plenty of guys to throw at him to play him normally. I think that's what they're going to end up doing. And then Draymond Green lurking. They're just too good defensively to have to resort to that. Although we'll see. Steve Kerr is looking out of the side of his eye wondering what to do about that. They're never going to get behind him, but you never know if they want to play on the side. The one problem I had though was they were playing on the left side of him, and that let him step back to the right. And I figured they should have at least tried going the other side and make him go to his left, because if he steps back, it's a much harder way to shoot that. It sounds weird, but I would have liked to have seen that too, at least mix it up and then, keep him on his toes.
But that is his shot though, right?
What? Going to his right is what he likes to go better.
I thought he likes to step back to his left. Well,
No,
No, you're right because he has his left hand forward, he has his left foot
yeah.
forward. So you're right.
I mean,
Huh.
no, he
Yeah,
does
you're
it.
right.
He does it both ways, but it's just harder because you have to rotate more, and it's just across your body. It's to get it to align with the rim. But which is another reason why, like in isolations at the end of the game. Now, and by the way, that's sort of what Paul George did. The argument is force the guy to his strong hand because most likely he's going to pull up and not try and get in the lane and risk, a referee not calling a foul. So don't let him go left where he can then pull up and it's really not much more natural in alignment there. Didn't matter with Damian Lillard though, who rose up to his right anyway and nailed that shot. And again, did we talk about Paul George's comment about how it was a bad shot?
I don't know, but I mean, we can do that quickly. We do have some really good questions here still.
Hit the questions.
So we're going to keep going. No, but let's quickly do a tangent, then we'll circle back. The full context of the question was him saying like he did a great job, but that's a bad shot. I feel like people were cutting off the beginning, just like they were cutting off the beginning of the Russ quote from today's exit meetings, where he said that like he has a good relationship with Billy Donovan. They cut out the part where he said he has a good relationship, so that it looks like the stuff after that is worse than it really is. So I felt like by clipping George's comments, it made it look a little bit worse than it really is. And he had just like the question before that, he had like heavily praised Dame for the shot that he made, but he still was. It wasn't like completely distorting the context. He was still saying too much. It's a bad shot, which is true. It's like there is nothing you want more than a guy to take a half court shot. So I thought Paul
Right.
George defended. I thought Paul George did exactly what you're supposed to do. He didn't try to foul, which the Blazers had just drawn a foul. I think a couple positions before that on a jumper, if I'm not mistaken, or I'm thinking of Lou Williams last night. I haven't slept in a few weeks, so it's all starting to mush together now. But I think I'm thinking of when Lou Will got the 4-point play. But like he didn't want to commit a foul on Dame, who Dame is great at drawing deep fouls. And like he was positioned 30 feet out from the basket. It's like, who gives a shit about your angling or your tightness at that point? 30 feet is that line of you don't want him to shoot anywhere inside of that line, no matter how far it is from the 3-point line. If he's going to shoot from all the way out there, that's insane. And it's so unlikely to happen that I don't care what the result is. That is the process.
Right.
The expected shot value was -0 on that, which isn't a real number, but that's how low it was.
Okay, fair enough. No, well, yeah, I mean, the only thing was he was shooting an ungodly percentage from that distance all series long. So, and as the shot clock or as the clock winds down, to 4 and 3, you got to close the distance because there's no time to do anything else but shoot it. So that's my thing. He said he was about a step short, and he didn't go up with the left hand contest. He went up with the right hand, which is going to be on the wrong side of his shot, and that was the only thing. But again, you just tip your cap. I just feel like it might have the response to sort of takes away some of the respect that you should have for the guy who hit it. He hit the shot. You got to tip your cap, and instead he was like, "Oh, it's a bad shot. I don't care what you say." Like, and that just didn't feel good to me.
You know what he should have said instead of the word bad shot? He should have said he took the shot that I wanted him to take.
Bingo.
That's what you say.
Yes.
That's what you say. You're not disrespecting him, but you're saying the same thing without it being disrespectful.
Right. All right. Let's grab. Okay. We have a good.
Wait, are you wearing a shirt
left?
that says "Friend of the Pod" right now?
What's that?
Are you wearing a shirt that says "Friend of the Pod"?
Yes, I am. Did you see it?
That's amazing. Friend of the Breakdown. Oh man.
Friend of the Breakdown.
Have I earned one of those shirts at this point? How many episodes do I need to host before I get a Friend of the Breakdown shirt?
Sure, you can get one. In fact, and anybody can go to Teespring right now and order your own version of this if you like. It's a really comfortable shirt. I love it. I wear it all the time. But I have swag, by the way. You guys should buy it. I'm gonna do a photo shoot at some point so people really know what I have. But this is a cool thing. It's got the logo on it below, and then Friend of the Breakdown. So check it out.
Okay, we're gonna do 2 mini segments here to finish it off.
Segments? All right, let's do it.
We're gonna go back to Warriors Rockets, but first, I think this is an interesting question. Westbrook's MCL first wanted to make the point. Never forget when Akeem was going to teach Dwight Howard post moves, which is Dwight Howard's credit. He had some post moves, he just wasn't good with them. But then his actual question is, who are y'all's second favorite teams? And that's I think that's an interesting question because I assume that you're assuming that that the Celtics are my favorite team because I cover the team. I mean, I grew up a Celtics fan. At this point, if I still had favorites, they definitely would not be the Celtics because I'm very tired. I've overdosed on Celtics, especially this year. So, and the team that you cover is never going to really be your favorite team because you kind of develop a professional relationship with that team. So it wouldn't be the Celtics. For me, it's been the Sixers for a while because I have been like the biggest Joel Embiid stan from the get go. I thought he was going to be, top 5 player in the NBA. So I was all in on the Sixers trying to break the system and the way they're trying to build. It's actually kind of gone sideways from where I thought it was going, but I really do love the Sixers. And of course, Brett Brown is he's just so freaking enjoyable if you're a reporter or just a fan of the league. Utah, another team, obviously, just because you just kind of love the system that they have, the cast of players that they have. They're kind of like the overachieving team. San Antonio, I guess, is always that proverbial favorite. But the Clippers are the team that I have just become obsessed with this postseason. This season, they've been so much fun to watch. And this postseason, I don't think I've had as much fun watching a team as I have had watching the Clippers in the series in years. They've been so entertaining, beautiful basketball, high scoring, potent offense that really kind of represents what the rule changes were this year with the points of emphasis to trying to make the game more free flowing. The mix of spacing that they have with kind of like unique lengthy guys, but then also having like this amazing classic pick and roll duo between Lou Williams and Harrell, and then the personality of Doc Rivers. It's like they give you every single thing you could want out of a basketball team. So I'm obsessed with the Clippers right now.
Well, I'm going to go with Portland for that almost that same reason because they're the way they have the most clever offense in the league. I think when they run their opposing actions with Lillard and CJ coming off of screens and balancing that, they spread the floor. They utilize the three as well as anybody to mitigate any issues they might have talent wise. And they've just been the class of the league. They're consistently above where people think they're going to be. They win more games than everyone expects. Damian Lillard is a class act. I mean, just like it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. So, and then CJ is probably nicer than Dame. So you got a couple of guys who are leading teams. They're doing really well, and they have a shot. They have a shot too to get to the Western Conference Finals as well. I mean, and who knows if anyone ever got really, really, really hot, over the course of 4 games in a week, then who knows what might happen. So at the very least, I'm very intrigued by Portland, especially because they're able to plug guys in and find their maximum potential. Jake Layman's a great example of that. I just wish they didn't have to play Evan Turner at all. But he's just it's just a buzzkill, man. He's a buzzkill when he gets in there. And he only plays, 10, 12 minutes now. But if they could figure out a way to cut that a little bit, I'd be even happier. So any other questions we have in the chat?
Yeah, and I'll just quickly say that Portland and Toronto, 2 teams that are a great example of why you don't want to just blow it up and you want to run it back when you feel like you're getting close to that ceiling, because you can still push that ceiling a little bit further. And maybe it stops at the conference finals, but at least if you're getting to the conference finals and you're running into like the Warriors, I think you can feel pretty good about your franchise at that point. And maybe you have to start over from there eventually, but that's been great to see. So there's a bunch of other solid questions in here, but let's focus on these Rockets Warriors ones. So Amari Bra 16, nice bra. Do you think the Rockets starting 5 should remain as is versus the Warriors with Gordon starting? I'm assuming that means that you would consider putting House in instead of Gordon. And then also, what do you think of that too? What do you think of Chris Paul playing the Beverly role of guarding off of Draymond to help?
That's interesting. I haven't even really thought about that because they didn't do that last year at all, right? They kind of matched up normally where they want him on Steph. Well, if that's the case, if you put CP3 on Draymond to like roam, then who? I would almost say put Harden on Draymond, but like then who guards Steph if CP3 isn't guarding him?
Well, I think the point is that when you're playing, let's call it the cop role off of Draymond, that the person patrolling has to be super. They have to be constantly coordinating the defense. Chris Paul is amazing at that, right? He's like one of the best of our era at that. So he makes a lot of sense for that role in that he's going to be reading the actions, calling things out. He's going to actually race over if there's like a backdoor cut that he needs to shut down or whatever it is. If you're putting Harden in that role, I mean, at least Harden's on the nail, so he at least is he's at least in the lookout spot that you want him to be, where you can see what's going on. But you're not really counting on him to be engaged. And particularly if he's standing on the nail when a play's happening, if there's any dribble penetration, don't you feel like he's just going to watch it as he starts to walk towards the other end and let the defense play 4-on-5 so he can get out on the break?
Maybe, but here's the other thing is I was going to say you probably want like a sort of a bigger guy to do that role, but then I'm realizing no, like Patrick Beverley is doing that right now. So
he plays like a 5, honestly.
Yeah, right. So it's like CP3 can do that same kind of thing. So yeah, that could work. But again, if that's the case, who do they put on? I mean, if Gordon does start, then Gordon has to guard Steph. Harden has to guard Clay. Capella guards Bogut, and then who do we have left? Durant.
PJ is on Durant.
Yeah, that works. That works.
Yeah. It works.
I would, listen. They're probably gonna try a lot of different things, and that could certainly be something that I'd be intrigued by at the very least. And again, if you're not gonna ignore Draymond, then you're probably doing yourself a disservice. There's no reason to guard him like a normal player anyway, because we've seen time and again that when the Warriors do struggle, it's because of that. So I'm sure that they're staring at this right now. Bizdelic, I'm sure, is looking at that really hard, and it seems reasonable to me.
Okay, so we'll wrap it here with. It's a double question here. How long into the series until we see Steph and Katie ball screens, which probably will be never. We'll see that in Game 7 of the finals, probably.
Oh, they run them. They run them. They run a little bit enough. Yeah.
Okay, so there's our answer. But then I forget where the question was. Somebody asked, are the Rockets better set this year versus last year against the Warriors?
I don't think so. I think that they're not as good, right?
But also keep in mind, do you think the Warriors are as good as they were last year too?
Right. Yeah. Livingston doesn't seem as effective, and neither does Iguodala. And the way they're guarding Draymond now, yeah. So you're right. They're both maybe moved down a little notch. So maybe it's the same that we had last year. Maybe we'll get the 7-game series again. I'm thinking 6, Warriors in 6.
Yeah. Iguodala, I don't know really. I feel like Iguodala is just kind of just saving it in the tank for whatever their final series is going to be, whether it's this one or the finals or whatever. But like his defense is still insane. Like his defense at the end of that Clippers game was unbelievable. He almost shut down. Actually, I thought they were going to close it out just because the way he was
guarding Lou Will.
Right, the way he's guarding Lou Will, he was getting some big steals, getting the rebounds, making great passes.
Right, and by the way, and he still gets up off the floor. That they lob it to him and he'll dunk it. Like so, I feel like physically he doesn't seem any slower or whatever. But there's something missing, I think, with the team itself. Right, like that's the thing. Like they should win. They will win. They probably will win. I don't know, but there is something that like maybe wouldn't surprise me if they got stung, in the Western Conference Final for the finals. For some reason, I just don't know why. It's gripping me in the back of my brain.
I mean, Iggy and Draymond feel like they're offensively the exact same player now, where they don't want to shoot, and when they put the ball on the floor, they're not looking to score, they're looking to pass, and they're both great passers. But that's all that they're really doing on offense right now. Right. And if you have two of those guys on the floor, obviously you're surrounding them with the 3 best shooters in the NBA, so it's like it works, but it's hard. If Harden, House is going off too, that helps too. But if Harden, Paul, and Gordon are all going off, Houston has the advantage offensively.
Okay, yeah. Well,
which is remarkable because the Warriors are the best offense in the game, but they do.
Right. I mean, yes. That okay. I mean, if this team is really, really hot, they have the advantage. Okay. I mean, that's a fair statement.
That's how it works in most series. But but I think that you can only make that as a legitimate point against the Warriors because the Warriors are that good.
Cool. All right. Well, listen. Awesome stuff. I think it's time we've done this. It's our longest show we've done in a long time. So
it's like an hour and a half so far. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm only counting when we had to redo it and go back on our stream. But anyway, it's over an hour at this point. So thank you guys for all joining us. Awesome questions. We will do this again, right, Jared? We're gonna have more games that maybe aren't so late that we can have this without it being completely late in the East Coast. So stay tuned for that, and we'll make sure to keep our technical difficulties to a minimum next time. And I guess we'll post this as a pod tomorrow, right? What do you say?
Yeah, and just quick note here, Celtic legend John Havlicek passed away just before we went on the air. So I met him once, wonderful guy, incredibly nice guy. His legacy is obviously he's one of the all-time greats, one of the great champions and winners ever. So, and the original 6-man, right? Or not the original, but like the original iconic 6-man, I guess. So
right, no, he made it like a thing without question. So it's a really terrific player. In fact, I was watching at some point a few years ago the Celtics Suns 75 finals, maybe whatever that was. And I was like, nobody played that position better than him. I mean, like he was better than Bird at that in that series. And so just a guy. I'm gonna have to do a video on him to honor him because I feel like people have forgotten. Short of Havlicek stole the ball, that's all they might know. And he played in the early '60s through the '70s and has a whole career people don't know about.
Yeah, and if for people that haven't seen him play, go back and watch what was considered the greatest game ever. It was the triple overtime game 6 in the NBA Finals between the Celtics and the Suns. It's all. I think the whole game is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Paul Westphal, I think, was the high scorer for Phoenix.
Yeah.
Who was another great, great swing man back when they were swing men. Like that's what they called them back then. But those teams were really spectacular. Dave Cowan's one of my favorite players growing up. Was probably my dad's favorite player, I think. So my dad would always tell me about Dave Cowan's growing up, and those guys were really, really remarkable. Great hustling team, great passing team. Kind of established some of the fundamentals that made offense what it is in the future.
For sure. All right. Well, listen, Jared, thanks for joining me tonight. Everyone else out there, thanks for being part of the conversation. Awesome stuff. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Jared?
I'm in playoff mode.